Have you seen his comments? No. Or he basically very heavily pushed back on you saying that there were no negotiations. And then
I never said there were no negotiations. I never said that. I said, were they talking to Jon Jones? They talked to everybody. Everybody was talked to. Not one word of what I said was not true about the whole Jon Jones thing. And how many times have I sat up here and said, he's not fighting at the White House? Have you guys not all seen the video of the dude with the meta glasses on when he didn't know he was being filmed, telling them that his hips are shot and he needs hip replacement? Did you not see the videos of him running on the flag football game? And what did I say that wasn't true? John's the greatest of all time. No way in hell Jon Jones is going to be booked for the White House card.
I can tell you that Jon Jones at 4:24 p.m. posted on X that he would like to be released from the UFC. Hey everyone, I wanted to address Dana White's comments from this past weekend because the truth matters to me and the fans. Dana, you were heated about why I'm not on the White House card, but let's clear something up. My team and I were actually negotiating with the UFC for that fight. Real negotiations. I even came down from my original number, and what it was I offered in return, I was lowballed. Yes, I have arthritis in my hip, and it's painful, but that doesn't mean I can't fight. So let me get this straight. If I had accepted the lowball offer, suddenly my hip would be fine, and I'd be on the White House card. That doesn't make sense. I even received stem cell treatment last week to get ready for the White House card, and training camp was scheduled to start today. I was preparing to be ready. I understand business deals fall through sometimes, but going out publicly and saying things that aren't true isn't right. After everything I've given to the UFC, the years, the title defenses, the fights, hearing that I'm done is disappointing, especially when as of recently as Friday, UFC was calling me trying to get me on that White House card for a much lower number. If the UFC truly feels like I'm done, then I respectfully ask to be released from my contract today. No more spins, no more games. Thank you to the real fans who know what's up. Bones out. So, back to back, you have a tweet from Ronda Rousey, who's one of the faces of the UFC, saying, F you. And then you have Jon Jones, who I appreciate, backed up everything I said around 3 hours ago, saying we were negotiating. I was lowballed, meaning he believes he was lowballed. And if you don't want me to fight for you, if you don't think I can fight.
Opposite. But here's the cold hard truth. If Jon Jones's demands are not being met for the biggest fight in history, they're not going to be met for the non-biggest fight in history.
Jon Jones and Dana White are suddenly in the middle of a public back and forth, and it has quickly become one of the biggest talking points in MMA. After Dana said Jones was never really considered for the White House card, Jones fired back online, saying negotiations were real and that the deal fell apart over money.
So grimy when the real answer is like, dude, just pay the money. Pay the money. You're spending $60 million to hold him in at the White House. We know why. Just pay it. Make something good happen or something that the fans want to see. And
Dana explained that he had already said many times that this fight was not going to happen with Jones involved. One of the big reasons is Jones's physical condition right now. Dana talked about how bad Jones's hips have gotten and said the situation is serious enough that doctors have even suggested hip replacement. He also mentioned seeing footage of Jones trying to move around recently, including a flag football game where he could barely run.
Dana, you talked about you don't want to say what fight fell out, which is fair enough, but there is obviously...
Well, there's weird circumstances around it that we probably shouldn't talk about.
Okay. There is speculation, of course, that it's Jon Jones.
No, it's not.
Was Jon
Never, ever, ever, which I told you guys 100,000 times, was Jon Jones even remotely in my mind to fight at the White House. I wouldn't. First of all, I've told you why he wouldn't. I wouldn't do it. And number two, some guy with meta glasses on filmed him talking about his hips, that his hips are so bad. And I don't know if you guys saw that flag football game where he can barely run. Jon Jones he retired because of his hips. He's got arthritis in his hips. Apparently he's been, doctors say he should have hip replacement.
Dana also pointed out that even while all of this was going on, Jon Jones publicly talked about negotiations for the White House fight, which surprised him. Dana said he had already sent a message to Jones's lawyer, making it clear that the fight was never going to happen, so hearing Jones speak about negotiations did not match what was actually happening behind the scenes. Because of that and the health issues with his hips, Dana basically treated the situation as Jones being done, at least in terms of being part of this event.
So,
Okay.
Add that on top of all the other reasons that I wouldn't. The Jon Jones thing is bullshit. I'm not saying they weren't talking to Jon Jones and that Jon Jones wasn't interested in the fight. And what was even crazier is Jon Jones came out and was like, I'm in negotiations right now for the White House fight, after I had already sent a text to his lawyer saying, never going to happen ever.
Is it fair to say then Jon Jones is retired and this is the end of his time?
Yes.
Okay.
Very fair.
Jon Jones quickly responded after Dana White said he would not be part of the White House card. Jon Jones said that the issue was not as easy as it sounded. He said that his team was, in fact, in talks with the UFC regarding this fight. He said that he had already reduced his original asking price in order to make this work, but the UFC had offered him much less than he had anticipated. According to Jon Jones, the problem was not that he did not want to fight. The problem was that he did not think the offer he got was reflective of the value he brings to the company. He also spoke about his hip issues. Jones stated that he had arthritis in his hip and it hurt, but he did not agree with the idea that this meant he could no longer fight. He went on to explain that had he just taken the offer, then his hip issue would not have been a problem and he would have been on the fight card. Jones also stated that he had already been getting ready to go, having just had some stem cell treatment and planned on starting training camp right away since he still thought he had a shot at the fight. He explained it was frustrating when he was said to be done with the UFC when he had done so much in the organization. Jones said he has been in the octagon for years and has been fighting and defending his titles in the organization. He said that being done was not in line with the real situation because the UFC was still contacting him before he made the comments. Wade Plemon pushed back on the idea that Jones's hip injury was the real reason the fight did not happen. He argued that the UFC has allowed fighters to compete while dealing with different injuries or limitations before, so suddenly treating Jones's hip as the reason sounded strange to him. From his perspective, the more likely explanation is that the relationship between Jones and the UFC had already become difficult after the whole Tom Aspinall situation. Plemon suggested the promotion may simply be tired of dealing with negotiations that go back and forth, especially after the earlier disagreement about a potential fight with Aspinall.
So that entire monologue that Dana just gave, the minute-long monologue, is full of contradictions. Number one, he says that part of the reason, and I remember I sat down with Dana and interviewed him, and he said Jon was not going to be a part of the card. He said that Jon was unreliable, that he had trepidation about putting Jon in a main event after the Tom Aspinall situation. If that is the reason, that's what Dana should have said, which I think it still is the reason that Dana doesn't want to put on a Jon Jones fight. It isn't because Jon has arthritis in his hips. I have seen Dana trot out Stipe Miocic at 40+ and looking like dog shit for Jon Jones, as long as they can get out there. I've seen Dana allow Michael Bisping to fight with one eye for the back half of his career and become a champion with one eye. So I've seen fighters be compromised going into fights. I've seen Dana allow fighters to come in on 4 hours notice. Dan Ige, hello. And it isn't anything to do, in my opinion, with this hip arthritis thing. Like, Dana's not like, well, I'm just looking out for Jon and his hip problems. Bullshit. This is clear to me that the reason he didn't want Jon on this card is that he turned down Tom Aspinall, that he turned him down after Jon said he would fight Tom Aspinall for the $30 million that they offered.
After Jones publicly responded and asked for his release, Plemons said the reaction made sense because the fighter clearly felt disrespected by how everything played out. He pointed out that Jones said negotiations were real and that he even lowered his asking price, which suggests the fighter was trying to make the fight happen. Plemons' overall takeaway was that the situation looks like a breakdown in trust between both sides. Instead of a clear explanation, fans are hearing two different versions of the story, and that is why the whole thing has turned into such a big controversy around the White House card.
And what I was offered, and what was I offered in return? I was lowballed. There we go. Again, we'll keep going through this, but this is what I think it really came down to, is that Dana probably instructed and or the matchmakers knew that there was only going to be one offer to Jon Jones based on the fact that Jon had, quote unquote, screwed them over. And to be honest, Jon did with the Tom Aspinall fight. They had an agreement and Jon went back on it. And so they were going to give him a taste of his own medicine. This feels like revenge, right? It feels like
Chael Sonnen also broke down why simply waiting and coming back later is not as easy as people think. Sonnen pointed out that Jones is already in the late stage of his career, and the heavyweight division will not stay frozen while he figures things out. If Jones does not fight through 2026, then the belt situation could completely change by the time he tries to return. Sonnen explained that for Aspinall to still be champion years from now would mean multiple title defenses, which is something that rarely happens quickly in heavyweight. Because of that, the whole target opponent might not even be there anymore.
You look at that and go, man, that guy's like 37, 38 years old. He had this opponent named Francis who left. Now he's got this opponent named Tom, and we don't even know if Tom will have the belt by that. For Tom to have the belt by 2027 would mean that Tom has to set a heavyweight record for title defenses. Right, all of a sudden it starts to get strange. You didn't have the evidence that Alex Pierre was going to come into the weight class. Because I can now tell you that. I can now give you that clue. Is Jon Jones going to fight again? Well, let me give you a clue. He's not going to fight in 2026. And it's not an opportunity of going, hey, I changed my mind. Look, it's all cool in the gang. We rethought this and I came in a little bit strong and the model has changed and I'm good for the fight with Tom. It's not an option.
Sonnen also touched on the fact that Jones clearly wanted to be part of the White House event, and from everything that has been discussed publicly, it sounds like that was the opportunity he was asking for. But Sonnen explained that wanting the spot and the fight actually lining up are two different things. The promotion still has to build a matchup that makes sense for a card that big. When he looked at the available opponents, he questioned what story the UFC could realistically sell if Jones were added.
And I feel for him. He wanted on the White House card. To our knowledge that we've been given, and I understand that things are kept, but from our knowledge, that was all that he asked for. He did not come in with some $30 million price tag or something ridiculous, and I imagine there was a little bit of a pain in the ass behind the scenes, but he had still made it ask, and he's doing a number of great things. And a guy that he smoked in 4 minutes got the opportunity. I mean, I could feel for Jon in that spot. But what do you do? I mean, if you had the power, what would you do? You're not going to put him in there against Tiavasa or Derek Lewis. You're not going to put him in there against Volkov. What story are you telling? Where are you going to go? Jon is going to have to fight for a belt. That belt is going to have to be defended against Tom, which was an idea that we had 5 months ago and didn't come to fruition.
Jed Meshew looked at the situation between Jon Jones and Dana White from a business angle, and his main point was that the money side is where everything fell apart. He explained that the numbers being discussed for the fight were nowhere near what Jones expected for an event that big. From what he understood, the offer was somewhere around the 15 million range, which is obviously still huge money for most fighters, but for someone like Jones, headlining a historic event, it felt very low compared to the scale of the card. Because of that, Meshew said the reaction from Jones and his team should not surprise anyone.
Money. And now we find out about Jon Jones and the fact that the UFC basically didn't want to pay him anywhere near the amount that could even be considered for this card. We're hearing numbers closer to Conor Benn, which is about $15 million. And Jon Jones, obviously, and his team not even entertaining that. Now, over the last couple of days, Jon Jones has been a little bit public on social media. There was a very strange video yesterday of him in his bedroom just being like, I'm so upset, and then sending out some weird tweets as he does. And then today, him basically putting out this massive tweet and talking about how he basically wants his release from the UFC. He felt like Dana White's comments about him at the post-fight press conference were upsetting to him about the arthritis, the retiring, and all of that. What do you make of where this whole Jon Jones situation ended up? And what is your thoughts on the UFC not really entertaining paying him that kind of money for this Pereira fight? Because there's two things, right? Maybe Jon Jones could have accepted the whatever $15 million and taken this fight. It's a favorable fight for him. It's a massive card.
He also pointed out something interesting about how this whole story has been framed publicly. Meshew admitted that he has criticized Jones many times before, but in this situation, he did not think the blame should land on the fighter. The way he sees it, the UFC controls the entire negotiation because they are the ones deciding what they are willing to spend. When a company is bringing in well over $1 billion in revenue every year, he argued that paying a bigger purse to the biggest star in the sport for the biggest event they have ever promoted should not be treated like an unreasonable demand
anymore.
Look, anyone who has seen me talk at all on this show, on MK, on
of course
anywhere I'm fighting, am never going to defend Jon Jones. I'm just simply not. But if your takeaway from this story is anything negative towards Jon Jones, you're putting your angry points in the wrong location, man. Like I actively do not like Jon Jones. That is a thing I have been very forthright with.
Mm-hmm.
And if I were in Jon Jones's camp, I am not sure I would have made this same determination that Jones and the Cowell brothers and did. But I do not blame him for this determination at all. The blame for this not happening falls squarely on the UFC because they are making $1.1 billion a year. Jon Jones is asking for a small pittance of that.
Meshew also criticized the way the situation was explained afterward. When the deal did not happen, the public discussion quickly shifted toward Jones's health and whether he could even fight. Meshew felt that the explanation distracted from the real issue, which was the financial side of the negotiation.
It's ludicrous. Like, it is an outright ludicrous thing. And it exists because they do not have to. And that's the thing I need to be very clear about, because I'm sure people come in and, carry water for the UFC because, I've never seen a company on earth with more free PR people than the UFC has. Maybe Elon Musk, who are just going to be like, yeah, I get it. The UFC does not have to pay him this money. I don't care. I am not a UFC accountant. I am not a UFC shareholder. I don't frankly give a fuck about the UFC's business, and neither should you. That is not your job. So why do you care? You are a fan of fighting, ostensibly. And as a fan, I can be upset that the UFC has just decided they don't.
So right now, the situation between Jon Jones and Dana White still feels messy. One side says the fight was never really happening, while the other says negotiations were real and the offer just wasn't good enough. What we do know is that a massive fight never came together, and now people are even questioning if we have already seen the last of Jon Jones in the UFC. The story clearly isn't finished yet. What do you think about this whole situation? Did the UFC lowball Jon Jones, or was it fair for the company to move on? Let us know what you think in the comments below.